The morning of the final hearing was filled with quiet tension. The sky was gray and the air was cool. Anna stood outside the courthouse with Mr. Lee and Mrs. Nora beside her. She took a slow breath and whispered, "This is it." Her friends nodded in silence, knowing how much this day meant. Inside the courtroom, the seats were packed again. Neighbors came to watch. Reporters filled the back rows, and strangers who had followed the story sat with expectant faces. At the front, the judge sat tall, calm, and steady, ready to hear the closing arguments that would decide everything. Anna sat at her table, folding her hands tightly. She looked across the room and saw Hilda sitting stiffly in her chair. Her clothes were neat, her chin was lifted, but her eyes seemed restless. The mask of control that Hilda always carried now showed cracks. The prosecutor stood first. His voice was clear and strong as he spoke. He reminded the court of every detail. The threatening letters, the repeated complaints, the neighbors who saw a shadow the night of the fire, the smell of gasoline in the air. He described Hilda as a woman who let her hunger for control grow into something dangerous. He said Anna had been targeted for no reason other than living her life in her own way. The prosecutor's last words echoed through the room. This case is not just about fire. It is about fear, power, and the destruction caused by a neighbor who could not accept peace. We asked the court to give justice to Anna and her son. The judge thanked him and turned to the defense. Hilda's lawyer rose. He moved slowly, his tone softer, almost pleading. He reminded the court that no one had seen Hilda start the fire. He said the evidence was only built on suspicion, and suspicion was not enough to destroy a person's life. He painted Anna as emotional, someone who had suffered and needed someone to blame. He asked the court to look at facts, not feelings. Then Hilda herself was asked if she wished to speak before the decision. She stood and walked to the front, her shoes clicking on the wooden floor. Her voice was smooth at first. "I am not a monster," she said. "I followed the rules. I worked for the good of the community. I never burned anyone's house. I am innocent." But as she spoke, her voice wavered. She looked around the room, at the faces staring at her, at Anna sitting steady with her hands folded. For a moment, the proud mask slipped. Her hands shook slightly, and she gripped the edge of the table before sitting down again. The courtroom fell silent as the judge prepared to speak. Everyone leaned forward, waiting. The judge's voice was calm but firm. "We have heard the testimonies. We have seen the evidence. The fire destroyed not only a house but also the peace of a family. While no one saw the act directly, the weight of evidence, the pattern of behavior, and the words of warning all point clearly to one person. This court finds Hilda guilty of arson and of placing others in danger." Gasps rose through the room. Some people shook their heads, others whispered. Hilda froze in her chair, her face pale. Her lawyer whispered quickly to her, but she did not move. The judge continued, "Because of the seriousness of the crime, this court sentences Hilda to prison. The length of time will reflect the damage she has caused and the danger she brought to her neighbors." Anna closed her eyes and let out a long breath. Her shoulders dropped as if a great weight had finally been lifted. She whispered softly, "Thank you." Hilda was led away by officers. For the first time, her proud steps were gone. She did not turn to look at Anna, nor at anyone else. The control she had clung to for years had slipped away completely. When the courtroom emptied, many people came to Anna. Some shook her hand, some patted her shoulder. Others simply nodded with quiet respect. Mr. Lee said warmly, "You did it. Anna, you stood strong." Mrs. Nora hugged her and whispered, "Justice has been done." Anna smiled faintly, though her eyes were wet. "It is not only for me," she said. "It is for Toby, for peace, and for everyone who feared her rules." The weeks after the trial were still difficult. Anna and Toby had no house to return to, only ashes where their home once stood. But the neighbors gathered around them. Together they raised funds, brought supplies, and offered help. One neighbor gave furniture, another offered building materials, and others shared their time and labor. Slowly, a new house began to rise on the same ground where the old one had burned. Anna watched as the walls were built higher each day, her heart filling with gratitude. Toby often ran around the workers laughing, his energy giving hope to everyone. One evening, as the sun set behind the half-built home, Anna stood with Mr. Lee and Mrs. Nora. She said, "I lost everything in one night. But because of that, I also found something greater. I found strength in myself and kindness in others." Mr. Lee nodded. Sometimes fire destroys, but sometimes it clears the ground for new beginnings. Mrs. Nora smiled. Your new house will stand stronger than the old one, because it will be built with care and with love. When the house was finally finished, Anna and Toby walked inside together. The room smelled of fresh wood and paint. The walls were plain but full of promise. In the garden, a new swing set stood tall, stronger than the first. Toby ran to it at once, climbing and laughing. Anna stood and watched, her heart full. The blue door of the house was back too, freshly painted, shining in the light. That night, Anna sat at her table looking out the window. The stars shone above and the cool wind touched her face. She thought of the long road she had walked, from the night of the fire to the day of justice. She thought of the fear she had felt, the tears she had shed, and the courage she had found. She whispered softly, "We are home again." Toby came running in, holding a small toy in his hand. "Mama, look, I found it in the box. It is from before the fire." Anna took the toy and held it close. It was a small reminder of the past, something that had survived the flames. She smiled and hugged Toby tightly. The fire had destroyed her house, but it had not destroyed her spirit. The courtroom had been hard, but it had given her justice. And the community had shown her that even after loss, life could rise again, brighter and stronger. As the night grew quiet, Anna closed her eyes with peace in her heart. The nightmare was over. A new chapter had begun. Anna lived in a quiet neighborhood that seemed perfect on the outside. The houses were all painted in soft colors. The grass was trimmed neatly and small trees lined the streets. Anna's house stood at the corner with a bright blue door and a small garden she cared for every morning. She loved planting flowers, and her garden was always full of color. There was also a swing in the backyard where she often sat with her dog Toby. Anna lived alone, but she never felt lonely. Her neighbors were friendly. Mr. Lee across the street always waved when he saw her. Mrs. Nora often brought fresh bread from her oven. Children played outside, and Anna enjoyed the sound of their laughter. Life felt simple and safe, but not everyone in the neighborhood liked peace. At the center of every problem was Mrs. Hilda, the president of the Homeowners Association. People quietly called her Karen because she complained about almost everything. She believed she had power over everyone and used her position to make life harder for the residents. Hilda had strict rules. Every house had to follow the guidelines exactly. The grass had to be the right length. The paint had to be in approved colors. Decorations in gardens had to be simple and plain. Many neighbors followed her rules because they were afraid of getting warning letters or fines. Anna always tried to follow the rules too. She was careful about her garden and kept her house tidy. She wanted to avoid conflict, but Hilda seemed to find faults even where there were none. One morning, Anna found a letter on her porch. The envelope was bright red with the HOA seal printed on it. Her heart sank because she already knew it was from Hilda. The letter said her swing set in the backyard was unapproved and had to be removed at once. Anna frowned. The swing was simple and safe. She had put it up months ago so Toby could play, and so she could sit outside. Nobody had ever complained. She did not understand why it was now a problem. She decided to call Hilda to explain. "Hello, Mrs. Hilda, this is Anna. I received your letter about the swing," she said politely. Hilda's voice was sharp. "Yes, Anna, that swing is against the rules. You must remove it immediately. Rules are rules. If you do not follow them, there will be consequences." Anna sighed softly but stayed calm. "I will remove it. I did not know it was a problem." "See that you do," Hilda replied coldly before ending the call. The next day, Anna removed the swing. She tried not to feel upset, but it was hard. As she worked, she noticed Hilda standing across the street with folded arms, watching her. Hilda did not smile or wave. She simply stared as if nothing Anna did would ever be good enough. Days passed and Anna tried to return to her normal routine. She planted new flowers in her garden, baked cookies for her neighbors, and went on walks with Toby. The air felt lighter when she focused on these simple joys. But she could not shake the feeling that Hilda's eyes were always on her. One evening, Anna stepped outside to water her plants. She saw Hilda talking to another neighbor. They stood close, whispering. Hilda glanced at Anna with a look that made her uneasy. The neighbor laughed at something Hilda said, but Anna could not hear the words. She only knew that the stare in Hilda's eyes felt full of dislike. Anna told herself not to worry. She had removed the swing. She was following the rules. She had done everything asked of her. There should be no reason for Hilda to be angry anymore. Still deep inside, Anna felt something was wrong. She noticed little things after that. Her garden tools were sometimes out of place, even though she was careful about keeping them arranged. A letter she placed on her porch for the mailman disappeared. Once she thought she saw Hilda standing near her house late at night, but when she looked again, the street was empty. Anna tried to brush these thoughts away. Maybe she was imagining things. Maybe she was just nervous because of the earlier warning. She wanted to believe everything would go back to normal. Then one night, the piece of her life broke apart. Anna woke to the smell of smoke. At first, she thought it was a dream. Then she heard crackling and felt heat. She jumped out of bed, grabbed Toby, and rushed to the window. Flames were rising outside. The side of her house was burning. The fire was spreading fast. Her heart pounded. She picked up Toby and ran outside. The night was bright with orange light. Neighbors came running, shouting for help. Someone called the fire department, but the fire was already strong. Anna stood helplessly as the flames devoured her home. The blue door she had painted with care was blackened. The flowers in her garden shriveled in the heat. Windows shattered. Smoke filled the air. Everything she loved was turning to ashes before her eyes. Tears ran down her face. She hugged Toby close and tried to stay strong, but the loss was overwhelming. Her home, her belongings, and her sense of safety were all gone in a single night. The firefighters arrived and worked bravely, but it was too late. The house could not be saved. By morning, all that remained was a blackened shell. Neighbors comforted Anna as best as they could. Mrs. Nora gave her a blanket. Mr. Lee offered to let her stay in his home for a few days. Anna thanked them, but her heart was heavy. She could not stop thinking about the life she had just lost. The police came to investigate. They spoke to neighbors and asked questions. One neighbor reported seeing a figure near Anna's house shortly before the fire started. When asked who it looked like, the neighbor hesitated but finally said it seemed to be Hilda. Anna froze when she heard this. She did not want to believe it, but the idea made her blood run cold. Could Hilda have done this? Could the woman who had written her endless warning letters and watched her from across the street have gone this far? Anna's mind swirled with fear and confusion. She did not have proof, but she could not ignore the suspicion. She had already seen Hilda's anger before. What if that anger had grown into something much darker? That night, Anna sat with Toby in the guest room of Mr. Lee's house. She could not sleep. She stared out the window at the ruins of her home. Smoke still rose faintly from the ashes. She knew her life would never be the same again. But she also knew one thing. She could not stay silent. She would go to the police the next day and tell them everything she suspected. She had lost her home, but she would not lose her voice. What Anna did not know was that this was only the beginning. The fire was not the end of her story. It was the start of something larger. The truth would come out, and the path ahead would lead her to a courtroom where she would face Hilda again. Only this time, justice would decide what happened next. The morning after the fire, Anna woke up in Mr. Lee's guest room with heavy eyes. She had hardly slept. The memory of her house burning replayed in her mind again and again. Toby lay curled beside her, sensing her sadness. Anna gently stroked his fur, whispering, "It's going to be all right." But inside, she was not sure if it would. When she stepped outside, the remains of her home still smoked in the daylight. Neighbors stood at a distance, whispering quietly. Some shook their heads in sympathy. Others exchanged worried looks. Anna could feel their pity, and it made her heart sink deeper. 2 police officers arrived that morning to continue the investigation. One of them, Officer Mark, walked toward Anna with a notebook in hand. He was calm and kind in his tone. "Miss Anna, I know this is very hard for you. We will do our best to find out what happened," he said. Anna nodded, trying to stay strong. "Thank you. I just want to know the truth." The officers moved around the property, taking pictures of the burned structure and asking neighbors questions. A small group of residents gathered nearby, and Anna overheard parts of their conversations. "I heard someone walking late at night," one woman whispered. "My son said he saw a shadow near the fence," another added. But the most shocking came from Mr. Green, who lived 2 houses away. He told the officers that he had seen Hilda near Anna's yard around the time the fire started. She was walking fast, carrying something in her hand. I thought it was strange, but I didn't think much of it until I saw the flames later, he explained. Anna's stomach twisted. The suspicion she had tried to push away was now being confirmed by others. She could not understand why Hilda would do something so terrible. A warning letter was one thing, but burning a house was another. Later that afternoon, Officer Mark returned to Anna. We are collecting statements. Some neighbors mentioned seeing Mrs. Hilda in the area last night. We will need to speak to her directly. Do you have any reason to believe she would want to harm you? Anna hesitated. She thought back to all the times Hilda had watched her, the strict letters, the cold stare, and the way she had whispered with others about her. Finally, she answered, she never liked me. She always found something to complain about. She wanted me to remove my swing set, and I did, but she still seemed unhappy. I don't know if she would really go this far, but she frightened me. Officer Mark wrote everything carefully. Thank you, Anna, your honesty helps. We will speak with her. That evening, Anna saw Hilda walking down the street as if nothing had happened. She was dressed neatly, carrying her usual clipboard. Her expression was calm, even cheerful, while Anna stood by the ashes of her home. It was almost too much to bear. Hilda stopped for a moment and looked at Anna. Such a tragedy, she said, her voice smooth but cold underneath. I always told people to be careful. Fire can spread so quickly when a home is not in order. Then she walked away without another word. Anna clenched her fists. That single sentence cut through her. Was Hilda trying to blame her? The anger and pain in her chest grew stronger. The following days were filled with questions, police visits, and paperwork. Anna stayed with Mr. Lee, but she felt like a guest in her own life. Every morning she walked past the ruins of her house, and each time her eyes filled with tears. Toby would tug at his leash, pulling her forward as if reminding her not to give up. The neighborhood was no longer the same. People avoided speaking loudly. They looked nervous, as if the fire had shaken their trust in safety. And every time Hilda passed by, silence fell over the street. She still carried herself like a leader, but the eyes of the community now followed her with suspicion. One evening, Anna sat with Mrs. Nora in her kitchen. Nora poured her a cup of tea and placed warm bread on the table. You must stay strong, Anna, Nora said softly. Everyone here saw how Hilda treated you. If she truly had a hand in this, the truth will come out. Anna sighed. I just don't understand why. I never tried to fight with her. I followed the rules. Nora shook her head. Some people don't want peace. They want control. Hilda has always been like that. You are not the first she has targeted, but you are the one who suffered the most. Her words gave Anna comfort, but also fear. If Hilda had harmed others in smaller ways, what else was she capable of? The police investigation continued. Days turned into a week. Anna was called to the station to give a full statement. She told them everything she knew, the letters, the phone calls, the watchful eyes, and the strange comment Hilda had made after the fire. The officers listened carefully. Officer Mark assured her, We are collecting evidence. This may take time, but we are moving forward. Not long after, word spread that Hilda had been called in for questioning. Neighbors whispered about it on the sidewalks. Some said she looked angry when the police arrived at her house. Others said she acted innocent, claiming she had nothing to do with it. Anna felt both nervous and hopeful. If the investigation proved Hilda guilty, maybe justice would be served. But if it failed, Anna worried Hilda might become even more dangerous. One afternoon, while Anna was walking Toby, Hilda suddenly appeared in front of her. You should be careful with the stories you tell, Anna, she said, her smile tight. Accusing people without proof can be very damaging. Anna froze. I am only telling the truth, she replied, her voice trembling but firm. Hilda leaned closer. Truth is a matter of perspective. You should remember that. Then she walked away, leaving Anna shaken. Anna rushed back to Mr. Lee's house, her heart racing. She realized this was not just about the fire anymore. It was about fear and control. Hilda wanted her silent, but Anna could not stay silent. The very next day, Anna received news that changed everything. The police had found traces of accelerant near the remains of her house, suggesting the fire was not an accident. It was set on purpose, and the main suspect was Hilda. The case was moving toward court. Anna knew she would have to face Hilda not just as a neighbor, but in front of a judge. The thought terrified her, yet it also gave her strength. She had lost her home, but she would not lose her courage. That night, Anna stood by the blackened ruins once more. The smell of smoke still lingered faintly, but for the first time she did not look at it with only sadness. She looked at it with determination. "This is not the end," she whispered to Toby. "We will see justice." In the distance, Hilda's house stood in perfect order, with its polished windows and trimmed lawn. But Anna knew that soon, the truth would shine brighter than any false image. And when the time came, Hilda would no longer be the one holding power. The days that followed were tense for Anna. She stayed at Mr. Lee's house, but she no longer felt safe walking alone in the neighborhood. Every time she saw Hilda's figure passing by with her clipboard, her heart tightened. Hilda acted as if nothing had happened. She greeted other neighbors with smiles and spoke about garden rules, but her eyes carried a hidden sharpness whenever they landed on Anna. The police investigation was moving forward. Officers had collected ashes, broken glass, and soil samples from Anna's yard. When the results came back, the news shook the neighborhood. The fire had been started with gasoline. It was not an accident. Someone had poured fuel and lit it. The police focused on Hilda because several neighbors had seen her near Anna's home that night. One evening, Officer Mark visited Anna again. His expression was serious but calm. "Anna," he said, "we now have enough evidence to move this case into court. The fire was caused on purpose, and the main suspect is Mrs. Hilda. She has denied involvement, but witness statements and the traces we found point strongly toward her." Anna felt both relief and fear. Relief that she was not imagining things, but fear of what would happen next. Facing Hilda in court felt like stepping into a storm. The neighborhood buzzed with talk. People gathered in small groups whispering about the case. Some were frightened, while others felt angry that someone in a position of power could harm a neighbor. Mrs. Nora shook her head sadly when Anna visited her. "Hilda always wanted control," Nora said. "She thought rules made her untouchable. But she went too far. Now the whole neighborhood will see her true face." Meanwhile, Hilda tried to maintain her image. She still walked around with her neat clothes and clipboard. She still checked on lawns and flowers as though nothing had changed. But fewer people greeted her. Some even turned their backs when she approached. The trust she once forced through fear was crumbling. One night, as Anna returned from a short walk with Toby, she found a folded piece of paper slipped under Mr. Lee's door. It had no name written on it, but the message was short. "Be careful what you say in court." Anna's hands shook as she read it. She showed it to Mr. Lee, who frowned deeply. "This is intimidation," he said. "Do not let it silence you. You must tell the truth." The next morning, Anna gave the note to Officer Mark. He read it and said, "We will keep this in the record. It only adds to the case." As the court date approached, Anna's anxiety grew. She would have to sit in front of strangers, lawyers, and a judge. She would have to speak about her life, her loss, and her fear of Hilda. She often stayed awake at night, staring at the ceiling, rehearsing what she would say. But one evening, something gave her unexpected strength. She walked by her burned house again. The ruins were black, but in the soil beside the fence a few green shoots were sprouting, small plants somehow surviving in the ashes. Anna knelt down and touched them. They reminded her that life could grow even in the darkest place. "Toby," she whispered, "we can do this. We will grow again, just like this." The day of the first court hearing arrived. Anna wore simple clothes and carried a small notebook with her thoughts. She held Toby's collar gently before leaving, as if drawing courage from him. Mr. Lee and Mrs. Nora went with her for support. The courtroom was large and quiet. The judge sat high above, the lawyers prepared their files, and the seats filled with curious neighbors who had come to watch. Anna's eyes scanned the room, and then she froze. Hilda was there. She was not sitting among the spectators. She was at the defense table, her hands folded calmly, her face smooth. Seeing her there, dressed neatly as always, made Anna's chest tighten. This was the same woman who had stood in front of her house giving warnings about flowers and swings. But now she was accused of destroying a life. The lawyer for the state stood and began to speak. He explained the evidence, the gasoline traces, the witness statements, and Hilda's long history of controlling behavior in the neighborhood. He spoke clearly, building the case piece by piece. Then Hilda's lawyer rose. He argued that there was no direct proof Hilda had lit the fire. He said the witnesses only saw a shadow, not a clear face. He claimed Hilda was being unfairly blamed because of her strict position in the homeowners association. Anna sat quietly, her hands clasped together. She listened to every word, her heart beating fast. When her name was called, she stood and walked slowly to the witness stand. Her knees felt weak, but she forced herself to stay steady. The lawyer asked her to tell the court what had happened. Anna spoke in simple words. She described her home, her swing, the warning letters, and the night of the fire. She explained how she had seen Hilda watching her many times, and how she had felt targeted even when she followed the rules. She also repeated the strange comment Hilda made the morning after the fire, about homes not being in order. The courtroom was silent as she spoke. Even the judge leaned forward, listening closely. When Anna finished, she felt a wave of relief. She had spoken her truth, and it was Hilda's turn. She stood with her lawyer and spoke in a calm voice. She denied everything. She said she had been at home the night of the fire reading a book. She said Anna was inventing stories to blame her out of dislike. Her voice was smooth, almost convincing, but her eyes flickered nervously. The neighbors who had seen her near the house also gave their testimonies. Mr. Green explained what he had seen. Others repeated the shadows and movements they noticed. Piece by piece, the picture grew clearer. By the end of the day, the judge announced that the case would continue to trial. There was enough evidence to move forward. Hilda was not free. She would have to face a full trial for what she had done. As Anna left the courtroom, she felt both exhausted and lighter. She had looked Hilda in the eyes and had not stayed silent. The road ahead would be long, but she was no longer afraid of speaking. On the way home, Mrs. Nora squeezed Anna's hand. "You were brave today. Do not forget that," Anna smiled weakly. "I was only honest. That is all I can be." Yet deep inside, Anna knew the battle was not over. Hilda was clever and determined. The trial would test her strength even more. But Anna also knew she was not alone. She had neighbors who believed her, police who were gathering proof, and a heart that refused to give up. As night fell, Anna sat by the ruins of her home once more. The little green shoots were growing taller now. She thought of them as a promise, a reminder that even in fire and ashes, life could rise again. And she promised herself, no matter how hard the trial became, she would see it through to the end. The day of the full trial arrived sooner than Anna expected. Weeks had passed since the first hearing, but time moved strangely when fear and hope lived together in her heart. Some days felt endless while others disappeared in a blink. Anna dressed simply, wearing the same calm colors she always did. She wanted the court to see her as she truly was, an ordinary woman who had lost her home. Mr. Lee and Mrs. Nora walked with her for support, and Toby stayed with a neighbor who promised to watch him while she was gone. The courthouse stood tall and quiet, its wide steps filled with people who came to watch. Some were strangers, others were neighbors who had followed the story closely. Anna felt their eyes on her as she walked inside. Her chest tightened, but she lifted her head. Inside the courtroom, the air was heavy. The judge sat at the front, ready to listen. The lawyers prepared their papers. The seats were filled with curious faces. And at the defense table, Hilda sat in her neat clothes, her hands folded, her posture proud. She looked exactly as she always did, but Anna noticed something different. There was a shadow in Hilda's eyes, a tension hidden behind her smile. The trial began with opening statements. The prosecutor, a steady man with a calm voice, explained the case. He spoke of the fire, the evidence of gasoline, the witness statements, and Hilda's history of strict and controlling behavior. He painted the picture of a woman who had allowed her need for power to grow into something destructive. Then Hilda's lawyer stood. He argued that the case was built on suspicion, not proof. He said Anna was a good storyteller, but stories were not facts. He reminded the court that no one had seen Hilda with fire in her hands. He suggested that perhaps the fire was caused by an accident, or even by someone else who wanted to blame Hilda. Anna listened quietly, her fingers pressed together. She knew this would not be easy. The first witnesses were called. Mr. Green described what he saw that night, a shadowy figure moving quickly near Anna's house, carrying something. He admitted he could not see the face clearly, but the size and the walk reminded him of Hilda. Other neighbors spoke about unusual movements they had noticed. Each testimony added weight to the case, but also gave the defense a chance to ask hard questions. When it was Anna's turn again, she walked to the stand with careful steps. Her heart pounded, but she steadied her breath. The prosecutor asked her to explain her life before the fire. She spoke about her small house, her blue door, her garden, and the swing set that caused the first conflict. She explained how Hilda had written warning letters and called her, how she had removed the swing but still felt targeted. Then she described the night of the fire. The smell of smoke, the orange flames, the panic of grabbing Toby and running outside. Her voice shook slightly when she spoke of watching her home collapse into ashes, but she held back her tears. The prosecutor then asked her about Hilda's behavior afterward. Anna repeated the strange comment Hilda had made about homes not being in order. She also mentioned the folded note slipped under Mr. Lee's door, warning her to be careful about what she said in court. When the defense lawyer began to question her, the air grew tense. He asked her if she had personal dislike toward Hilda. Anna answered calmly, "I never hated her. I only wanted peace." He asked if she had any proof that Hilda herself poured the gasoline. Anna shook her head. "I did not see it with my own eyes. But the evidence, the words, and the behavior all point to her." The lawyer tried to paint Anna as emotional, as someone blaming another because of anger, but Anna stayed calm. She repeated her truth without raising her voice. By the end, even the judge nodded slightly, as if respecting her steady courage. Finally, it was Hilda's turn. She stood and walked to the witness stand, her head high. She spoke in a smooth voice, claiming she had been at home that night reading. She said she never left her house, and that the neighbors must have been mistaken. When asked about the gasoline found in the fire remains, she shook her head firmly. "I know nothing about that," she said. When asked about the note of warning, she smiled faintly. "I have no reason to send such a message. Perhaps someone else wanted to frighten Anna. Perhaps someone else wanted to make me look guilty." Her words sounded calm, but her eyes betrayed her. Anna noticed the quick glances, the small shake in her hand when she reached for a glass of water. The prosecutor pressed her harder. "Mrs. Hilda, you had written several warning letters to Anna. You demanded she remove her swing set. Even after she followed the rules, you continued to watch her. Neighbors reported seeing you outside her house the night of the fire. Are you saying all of this is coincidence?" Hilda's smile faded slightly. She opened her mouth, but her answer came slower now. "I was strict about the rules, yes, but rules are rules. That does not make me guilty of fire." The prosecutor leaned forward. "Strictness is one thing. Destruction is another. We will let the court decide if your actions were only rules or something much darker." The room fell into silence after her testimony. People whispered quietly among themselves. Some shook their heads, others frowned deeply. As the day ended, the judge announced that the trial would continue the next morning with closing arguments. The final decision would not be made yet, but everyone could feel the weight of the truth pressing closer. Anna left the courtroom feeling drained, but also hopeful. She had faced Hilda's words directly and had not broken. She had told her truth in front of all, and she knew many had heard it with open hearts. That night, as she sat with Toby in Mr. Lee's house, she whispered softly, "We are close now. Justice is near." Toby rested his head on her lap, his eyes calm and trusting. His simple presence reminded her that even after losing everything, she was not alone. The next morning would be the most important of all. Closing arguments, final words, and the decision of the judge would shape the future. Anna knew it would be hard, but she also knew she was ready. The ashes of her house had not broken her spirit. The control of Hilda had not silenced her. The courtroom was not just about fire anymore. It was about truth, courage, and the strength to stand even when the world tried to push her down.